Happy snow day, Algebra 1. Please watch this video to help you with practice 6.3. It'll help you with some of those word problems that are on that practice set. Okay, so let's read this word problem. So it says that Layla's planning a trip to New York City and she knows she wants to do a whole bunch of stuff like Broadway shows, a Yankees game, and some other amusements. She already has $125 saved. That's an important piece of information. And she's going to deposit an extra $10 each week before her trip. So the first part is asking us to define the variables that are being compared. One of the variables that's being compared is time in number of weeks. And then the other variable that's being compared, we're going to call that f of x. We're going to call this function f, is the amount of money saved. Amount of money saved. Because the amount of money saved depends on how many weeks have passed. Okay, so then part B is asking us to write a rule that compares our input and output value. So we're essentially going to be writing an equation. And so that information that we highlighted in yellow is going to be helpful to us as we write our equation. So we're going to start off by writing f of x. So we know f of x equals, because the amount of money saved depends on the amount of time that has passed. Layla already has $125. So she's already got $125, and she's going to be depositing an extra $10 each week. So we're going to add, because she's depositing, right? We're adding more money. $10. We're going to put 10, and then each week. We don't know how many weeks are going to pass until she gets to her trip. So that's where we're going to put our X, because we can quickly figure out how much money she'll have after 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or 4 weeks. If we don't see that initially, another thing we can do is we can set up a table. So we know we've got X here, and then we've got f of x over here. So remember, X represents time in weeks, and then f of x represents money saved. So at week 0, Layla has $125. After 1 week, she's deposited $10, so she's going to have $135. After 2 weeks, she'll deposit another $10, so she'll have $145. After 3 weeks, she'll have $155, and so on and so forth. So if we set up a table, we can see that we can figure out our slope, because that's what we're doing when we're writing a rule. We're writing an equation. We can see that our change in y here is going up by 10, plus 10, plus 10, plus 10. This is going up by 1, up by 1, up by 1. So our change in y over our change in x, change in y over change in x, is 10 over 1, or just 10. So that's where that 10 comes from. That represents our slope. The 125 represents our y-intercept, because the y-intercept is when x equals 0, and we've got our y-intercept here. So we can write the equation just like the way we wrote it in green, or we can also express it as f of x equals 10x plus 125. Okay. Part C is asking how might we translate this verbal sentence into function notation. So after 3 weeks, Layla has saved a total of $155. So 3 weeks, remember, that represents our input, that represents our x, and this is our output. So we say that when we put 3 into our function rule, we're going to get out $155. So we use function notation, and we can write it just like this. And then part D, what would these equations look like with function notation? How much money does Layla need to have, or how much money does Layla have after 8 weeks? So one way that we can set this up is, well, we know that we're working with 8 weeks. So this is our X, this is our input. So 8 is going to go into our function rule, and we're trying to figure out how much money that's going to be. So we can plug that into our rule of 125 plus 10 times 8. 125 plus 10 times 8 is going to give us 80. So we're working with 205. So after 8 weeks, she's going to have $205. So hopefully this example is going to help you with some of those word problems on the back. We'll be available via email to answer whatever questions you guys have.